everyone, and thank you for joining us on our podcast, Fine Tuning Mind and Body. Here we speak about how mind and body pertain to feeling well, and this section is named Being Well. We named this section Being Well because there are very different variations of what being well actually means, and the first topic that we will be talking about is what is well-being. In order for us to start our discussion about well-being, we have to be able to define it. And then we will be moving on to the role of mental health in well-being. What is well-being will be a section spoken about with Darlene Schmitt. She is the Associate Director of the Hazen Counseling Center. She received her bachelor's in sociology and psychology from SUNY Geneseo, and she is a licensed mental health counselor. Darlene and I are really close. We first met at a mental health workshop that the Brothers of the Transcendent Taburasa chapter of Lambda Sigma Upsilon Latino Fraternity Incorporated were hosting, and we had lots of great conversations about what mental health actually is, what it means to be well. And so for this project, I invited her to our podcast because she had so many great things to say about all the aspects of well-being, because it isn't just one aspect. Everything around us affects us as human beings, and this is a conversation that needs to be had in order for us to better understand how to keep moving forward and how to be successful. Okay. What is well-being? How would you define what well-being is?
So I think well-being is just a general state of, homeostasis, if you will. When somebody feels that they are well, they are feeling comfortable, they're feeling content, they feel like they can manage whatever life throws their way, they have the coping skills and the abilities to manage the ups and downs of day-to-day life, but overall, they're feeling comfortable in their bodies, in their minds, in their community lives, their social life, connections with others. It's all kind of all balanced.
Okay. What are the different sectors of wellness?
Well, I think that there's obviously the wellness. When people say wellness, they immediately think of physical wellness. That's just one dimension, right? So there's also emotional wellness, relational wellness, like interpersonal relationships with others, social wellness, spiritual. So there's like the biopsychosocial, spiritual parts of ourselves. Not everybody's going to have a spiritual part to them, so their definition of wellness may be different than somebody who does.
Yeah.
So it tends to be pretty individualized.
Okay.
Somebody who may be other abled and have, what others may consider to be like a disability. Maybe they're other abled and they're in a wheelchair, and for some they may feel like, wow, they can't be physically well, but they're thinking, I'm great, I'm doing great. I can manage and function and be a productive member of society. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's more by individual, like their perspective of how everything is.
Yeah, for them.
How does well-being impact our physical, emotional, and mental health?
Well, so I think we would be talking about the absence of well-being tends to incorporate, like, everything's running great. We're like a well-oiled machine. Our bodies are healthy. Our minds are feeling, positive. We're able to handle the ups and downs of a daily life, right? But if something gets off kilter, something happens, right? Maybe we control it. Maybe it's something we do. Maybe it's something that's outside of us that throws us off. So, for instance, we get diagnosed with a chronic medical condition, or we lose a loved one and we're bereaved and we're lost and we're suffering, and it goes on for a period of time and it impacts our ability to function, then our well-being is altered.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they can't get back to a state of well-being, right? But the mind and the body are very closely connected. So Some people may find, right, my life is on paper looks perfect. I have no reason to feel depressed, but I am feeling depressed. So they're not feeling in a state of well being, even though everything checks off all the boxes as their life looks like they got it all together. But there's stuff, even we see it a lot with athletes and famous people who come out and say, hey, I've struggled with this. So I think, if the mental health is off, then physical health can sometimes be off, and vice versa.
Yeah, I agree.
It also affects our relationships. It affects our functioning as a student or at work or in relationships with others.
Okay. How can someone strengthen their well-being?
Well, I think recognizing that, happiness isn't like this state of being. Like, I should be happy all the time. Like, recognizing that, they're going to have periods of time where they don't feel great or they're stressed, but that doesn't mean that they're not well. You're recognizing that, like, yeah, this is life. This is what can be expected at this time. I have the skills and capabilities of functioning and managing and dealing with it. But when they can't pull up any kind of resources to deal, then to ask for help. I don't think there's any shame in that. Whether it's counseling, whether it's asking help from somebody at their church or a family member or a friend or a support group, professor.
Excuse me.
Just to get some support to get through a time that maybe is more difficult and harder to navigate than others. Because while people are going to feel well at various times in their lives, and they're not going to feel well at various times. It's not this linear, like, we're always going to have this general state of well-being. We can certainly work towards paying attention to our bodies, our thoughts, our feelings, and making sure we take care of ourselves.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Casey, and I'm here with Frank. Frank, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Frank Noll. I'm a licensed mental health counselor at the College of Brockport in the Hazen Counseling Center.
All right, thank you for joining us today. I understand that you'll be giving us some insight into health and well-being, specifically how it ties into mental health. So can you briefly discuss the role on mental health, on overall health and well-being?
Yeah, so mental health is just as important as physical health. And oftentimes, mental health doesn't just mean not having a mental illness. It's actually about being mentally, having a well-being perspective. So really looking at, how are the ways that you're living your life in a way that you're finding enjoyment and you're having happiness. And so really mental health can be impacted or can be impacted by different parts of other health, like your physical health. So oftentimes people with mental health issues that can then impact physical things. So there's a lot of physical illnesses, sometimes physical side effects that people experience that can be impacted, as well as sometimes with physical conditions and poor physical health that can actually contribute to mental health issues as well.
Yeah, I did a little bit of reading up. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, it's estimated that there's roughly 52 million Americans that live with some kind of mental health issue. So with that being said, whether ill or healthy, what are some steps one could take to potentially address their mental health?
Yeah, so with mental health, I oftentimes take a look just at the basics of things. So like, what is what are you eating? What are you drinking? Are you getting enough nutrients? Are you having enough energy? Sleeping, are you getting enough sleep? If you're not getting enough sleep, your mind doesn't have enough time to kind of recharge and reset every day. So a lot of times it's like the basic things, like, are you taking care of yourself? That would be a good place to start. Managing stress is very important. So like, are you getting exercise? So those are the big things that I look at in the beginning, is kind of, managing, what are you eating? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you exercising? And then focusing on, like, if you're not doing those things, what's getting in the way and how can we improve those a little bit? Because they'll ultimately impact your mental health and your overall well-being. So that's a good place to start.
That sounds like a good start. So I'm guessing, what would you suggest are probably the top three things someone could, if they were to prioritize, that they would focus on to, I guess, enhance their mood overall, if there's some steps one could take?
Yeah, so I mean, part of that is I'm a big proponent of self-care. So it's identifying ways that you can improve self-care. And self-care is different for everybody. So it could be, going out for a walk. It could be taking some time to read a book or doing something that you really enjoy. So anything really that kind of is relaxing but brings you happiness. The other thing, another thing that you could do to enhance your mood again would be focusing on, like what you're eating and are you exercising? Are you getting enough sleep? So all of those things together can really enhance mood. Um, and then just try to find like daily things that you're grateful for or things that are going positive. So oftentimes, if our mood is being impacted by things and we're experiencing, some depressive symptoms, we might be more likely to see things or think of things in a negative way. So if we can try to reframe that and work on identifying the positives or things we're grateful for, positive psychology has shown research that that can impact your mood significantly.
So gratitude sounds like a really big part of that.
Mhm.
Another thing I want to go on to is, I read a little bit about stress. According to the Mayo Clinic, this can cause or contribute to things like high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, and unfortunately things like depression and anxiety. Um, what would you suggest are some ways to cope with stress? Um,
Yeah, so I think again, it's kind of I keep giving a little bit of the same answer, so I apologize. But again,
okay,
it comes back to like your
bit of a
physical health
feedback
and
loop.
yep. Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Um, so I think it comes again to just like making sure you're exercising, make sure you're eating right, getting enough sleep. I would say social support is another thing to help cope with stress. So oftentimes, sometimes if people are stressed, they might tend to pull away from their social supports or, not talk about things that are bothering them. So a great way to cope with that is to, talk to their friends, even if they're not talking about what's stressing them out. Sometimes just that interaction and social support can be helpful. And just finding ways to relax. Maybe it's getting off your phone, maybe it's spending less time online, whatever it is that might just give you some time to kind of reset and, um, you know, just kind of manage that stress a little bit more effectively.
Okay. Um, issues of mental health, anxiety, depression, these things can be, really debilitating. And I guess that my next question would be, there's probably a lot of people out there that they have a friend or a relative that they know is having a hard time with something, whether it be anxiety or depression or just a whole plethora of different things. Or maybe you suspect that somebody's having an issue and you're not really sure how to bring it up. So I guess, how would you suggest that someone can reach out to a friend whom they suspect is having, without being judgmental, but how do they reach out to somebody they suspect is, having some kind of issue within the realm of mental health?
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is just kind of reach out and let them know, that you're concerned about them, or, sometimes it can even be just like, how are you doing? I like to stay away from like, are you doing okay? Right. Because that
Yeah.
you either say yes or no. But if you ask how somebody's doing or what's going on in their life, that kind of opens it up where they might start to talk about things. Um, I think it's also okay to kind of remark on behaviors you might have noticed, right? So like, hey, I noticed that you're not hanging out as much, or that you're not picking up my phone calls, or you seem a little bit down lately. So bringing up like specifics that might be easier for them to then address it. So that would be probably how I would just say be direct about it. Um, depending on the person and kind of your relationship with them, see what is available. Just letting people know. Sometimes I have a lot of students who say like they share their experiences with their friends, and even like coming to counseling, like, hey, I've been feeling down too. I go see a counselor, and this is my experience. Something to kind of normalize what they're experiencing, but also encourage them to seeking that support.
All righty. This is Frank, and Frank, thanks again very much. Well, there you have it, folks. This has been our podcast, Fine Tuning Mind and Body by Peyton, Yelissa, and Casey. Our episode today was titled Being Well. And we'd like to give a special thanks to our guests, Frank and Darlene. Thank you for your contributions to this podcast. And now the viewers know a little bit about what is health and well-being and several other things like what can offset health and well-being and how to regain wellness. We also discussed some other things, how someone can address mental health, how someone can deal with their stressors, and also how can a friend reach out to someone that they suspect is having a difficult time in life. Thanks a lot.